Joining us now in his usual Monday spot after 5 amazing playoff games, Greenlight Podcast host, two-time Super Bowl champion Chris Long back on the show. How are you doing, Christopher?
Rich, how you doing, brother?
Let's just jump right into it. Did you sit up in your chair just like I did when I heard the report before the Sunday night game that Lamar didn't travel with his team, or is there nothing to be read into that from last night?
I don't know if there's anything. Listen, I can't speak for Lamar, and it's kind of an inflammatory topic because,
Oh, yeah.
I think it's quite possible that if you listen to the quotes after the game, guys talking about him being at 50%, the knee just not being where it needs to be. Okay, so if he's not close to being able to play and turning down the opportunity, I don't think we have a real problem, right? Or, and some people would say, hey, without your contract, don't go play if it's sketchy. I mean, I know there's some back and forth on that yesterday. I don't want to read too much into that because I don't want to create a situation where people are taking shots at Lamar based on some of the circumstantial evidence. I do think it's probably his last game. We won't see him play another game in Baltimore.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I felt that way going into this year. I felt like this year could be it. All the signs are pointing to probably not, but I do think it's important to read kind of what guys were talking about after the game. And I like the fact that he put out, kind of specifically what the injury was, because, there's a lot of gamesmanship between coaches and, Harbaugh and that sort of thing, and information and not giving your opponents too much. And it was nice to have that clarity. And hearing from the guys after the game, it sounds like he was not as close as people think to playing. I would have probably been there, but, I also don't know everything about the situation.
Well, the reason why I asked that question the way that I did, Chris, and spoke about it, briefly to start the program, is because all signs point to exactly your conclusion that this is a quarterback who's done with his team, and the team, might be done with him. Because he and Tyler Huntley, again, when I met Tyler Huntley, because he was starting the game that I called between the Browns and the Ravens back in Week 15, that's all Huntley talked about was his love of Lamar and how they're tight and how he basically idolizes Lamar. So for Lamar not to be there, for his guy, it definitely would have been additive for him to have been standing on the sideline and talking to Tyler Huntley during a playoff game to work him through it. I mean,
listen, obviously it's something you wish he'd be there. But I also, excuse me, I also don't know kind of the dynamics of the inner workings. There could have been some really inflammatory conversations. There could have been, some conflict that I don't know about. And, ideally you want him there on the sideline. But that's all we know right now. And, I don't think Lamar, the way this chapter has ended, the bottom line is functionally, how is this going to play out? Like, how does it affect how it's going to play out? Like, I don't think this is going to affect other teams' desires to have Lamar on the team. And I think right up until this point, I don't think there's ever been a time where you could question Lamar as a teammate. But him not being on the field is definitely something that people are going to pay attention to. I just don't know everything about it.
Chris Long here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's the longest you've ever run a football back? I assume it's less than Sam Hubbard's 98.
Definitely,
right?
Yeah.
Chris?
Sorry, Rich.
It's okay. Do you need oxygen like Sam? It's okay if you need.
Yeah, no. I just thinking about Sam Hubbard. It's got me out of breath because I was nervous for him. I've never seen a big man, and he is truly a big man. He's not one of these little edge guys. Run that far. He had a convoy, and Andrews almost caught him. Got a little piece of Andrews, but I thought Harbaugh talking about Huntley, and you can say what you want. I think Greg Roman was really bad in the red zone. Obviously, you got to tip your cap to the Bengals and their defense. They've been doing stuff like this all year, but whether it's before the half, whether it's late in the game, they tightened up when they had to. I don't hate the call on a sneak. Now, people are going to hindsight 2020 because it's easy to just rip everything the Ravens did. We were never closer, I feel like, in the same game to lauding a group of players and coaches, for carrying out the objective exactly the way you had to and coming away with a win. And just like a little bit of difference there. And we're talking about fire Greg Roman. You know, people hate Harbaugh's game plan and all that stuff. Like, they almost beat these guys. So I think 3rd and 1, going with the sneak is fine. I heard Harbaugh's analysis of it after the game. Like, if we get stuffed, we still have 4th and inches. If we get hit in the backfield and it's 4th and 3, you know, that complicates things a little bit. And I also like the clarity. I mean, they were supposed to go low with the sneak. He went high. It's 3rd down. You don't extend the ball on 3rd down, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we saw Trevor Lawrence do it the other night on a 2-point conversion, but that's because it's a 2-point conversion. Now, you know, that could result in points for the other team, but it's about not turning the ball over. And, you know, great bounce for Cincinnati. I just, you know, for me, Cincy coming out of this thing, I thought they were the best team in the AFC. It's amazing the difference, you know, the uncertainty with Kappa, Collins is out, and now Jonah Williams, who's had a bad year, right? Maybe the backup plays better. But for Joe Burrow, I think last night, seeing that happen, it's like, oh, damn, more of the same. So, you know, it was a gutsy win by them. You knew it wasn't going to be easy. Just a little closer comfort.
Chris Long here on the Rich Eisen Show. Here we are at the end of another playing season for this team, and it's the same old phrase. I don't know how the Chargers can come back from that. I mean, what a remarkable Saturday night it was in Jacksonville, the way that things started for Trevor Lawrence, 4 interceptions and then 4 touchdowns in his final 5 drives. And then I guess to place you in the shoes of Joey Bosa, if you can, what you saw, what you think happened, I give you the floor on all of it, Chris Long.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a very Chargery way to lose a game. You almost knew it was too good to be true. Now, I did see a guy bet $11,000 on the Chargers money line. I guess he'd never seen the Chargers play before. He lost $1.4 million late Saturday night. That'll ruin your weekend. I'm looking at the game and I'm thinking, hey, right before the half, it'd be nice to go to the locker room without giving up a touchdown to give Jacksonville the ball back. You know, Trevor starts that run. He just had such a short memory. But more than anything, you know, and I've kind of lamented this at different times. Like, Brandon Staley seems like a guy who sticks to his guns, right? Like, we do what we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
To a fault. I could hear him at the podium had they won that game saying, like, we continue to attack or something like that, right? But 25 passes, 8 runs, not going to cut it. Like, from a time of possession standpoint, like, not even, you know, the clock management aspect of it. It's not even, you know, putting the ball in the air. I was so surprised by not only the way they ran their offense in the second half, but the way they covered. You know, they were a lot more aggressive. They were a lot more aggressive in the first half, especially on second down. They, like, manned up a lot. In the second half, they played, like, cover 3, and they were off. And, you know, Ingram's making linebackers look bad. They're busting coverages. I think somebody jumped a dig on one of the touchdowns, and then somebody busted on the second Jones touchdown. You know, so for a defensive head coach to kind of apply his philosophy to offense and just the way they attack the game, and that to not work out, and then, you know, defensively to give up all those points. I mean, it was one of the worst defensive performances in playoff history and a half. It's awful. And then, you know, at the end of the game, it's 30-20, and if you're that aggressive on 4th and short, you trot out Dicker, and he misses the kick. And, you know, now it's 30-20, and here's the guy who's really not afraid of anything. It's Doug Peterson. It's 4th and 7 early in the game. We're going. You know, we're going for 2. We're going to go for 2 for the win. We're gonna get the ball on the edge. And the timeout called right before Etienne got the ball on the edge to pick up that 4th and 1 and really ice the game. He knows exactly the look he's looking for, and he didn't have it, and he calls the timeout. I just thought Doug did such a great job. There's also something here where it's like Doug's Trevor Lawrence is kind of like, I don't know, security blanket, man. Like, that's a really good offensive head coach and his quarterback. They're tight, right? And you can tell Doug and Trevor have a good relationship. And I don't know what he said to him on the sidelines after he threw 4 picks. But just to be able to manage that situation I want to give credit to Trevor Lawrence in a big way. But Doug alluded to, like the way Brett Favre used to play, like there was a short memory. And, it's the same thing for Trevor. And so I thought this was a big, big deal for them. Also for Trent Baalke to sit there and see, like, all your free agents pan out. We were making fun of them, right? I made fun of them. Like, we paid Christian Kirk, like, all this money, reset the market. My co-host Macon's a big Giants fan. Evan Ingram, I don't think he saw that coming. He's
Christian,
been a key piece there.
Yeah, I got Christian Kirk coming up in hour number 3. I mean, Christian Kirk, who had the touchdown to make it 30-28. And, I just want to get your thoughts on Bosa, though. I mean, so much conversation happening with him.
Yeah.
I know you just mentioned how, you'd like to know what Doug Peterson said to Trevor Lawrence at halftime or after he threw his 4th interception. I'd love to know what Bosa said to referee Sean Smith that made the ref continue. Yeah. Track him down. And then Bosa doubled down, and then Bosa doubled down later on after his head coach. That was wild with Brandon Staley picking up Bosa's headgear for him after Bosa had thrown it to earn 15, and then he threw it again right in front of Staley's feet. I'm wondering.
It was crazy, and I love Bosa and everything. He just got to keep his head. And the neutral zone infraction is a 4-point difference. And then, obviously you don't want to lose your cool in that situation. I have no idea what he said to him. There's 2 conversations I'd like to be privy to, that one and then the Chris Jones penalty against Indy earlier this year.
Yeah.
I remember they just threw a flag on Chris Jones, like just something he said. And then obviously you lose your cool and you slam your helmet a bunch. Not once but twice. Staley ran over and picked it up for him. It was like a pit crew. Putting that thing back together. And, for the rest of the game, Rich, if you've ever slammed your helmet, which I know you probably have,
yes.
You can't put the damn thing together. It's really hard. There's a lot of pieces in there that they all get loose. And, the next 2 possessions, you're fumbling to, put the pieces back together. It was such a meltdown, man. A meltdown in all phases. And then Justin Herbert, and I don't like putting blame on quarterbacks for blowing big leads. People were piling on Matt Ryan about the game against the Vikings and everything. I'm one that, I'm a defensive player. I think you got to get stops and you got to remain aggressive, on defense and that sort of thing. You have to possess the football longer than they did. But Keenan Allen's open and they have a chance to go up, 31 to whatever it is. Was it nothing at that point, or 7, and he misses him in the end zone, and it was 34. It would have made a big difference. It would have been a 4-point difference had he hit him in the end zone. He's wide open. So I know there's throws that Herbert wants back. There's trips to the red zone they want back. That they don't seem like a big deal when you're rolling in the first half. And neither does giving Jacksonville the ball back before the half, but they go get 7, and I think that was a big difference.
Chris Long here in the Rich Eisen Show. I'm just going to get right to it. Can the Giants win the Super Bowl, Chris?
The Giants?
Yeah. Can they win the Super Bowl?
I don't think so. I don't think so, Rich. There's no good way to answer that question. It's like it's either saying yes. Anything's possible, right? I've been on a team like that, but I think they're well ahead of schedule. I think that, and I had the Giants yesterday. I'm a big fan of what they've done. I think extend Daniel Jones. I think extend Saquon. I love that their draft picks are all panning out. Your Dexter Lawrence was a machine yesterday. Him and Leonard Williams effectively ended that game.
This is why I ask. You got to get pressure up the middle. You got to get an edge. Thibodeau is blossoming before our eyes. And Daniel Jones and Barkley and then all these guys that aren't on your fantasy team that make plays. That's why I ask here.
I don't think I'm afraid of their edge rush. I'm afraid of their interior guys.
Okay.
And that is a big deal, right? But Daniel Jones, the way he played yesterday, the checks he made, the throw to Hodges on the sideline, Saquon Barkley, just nobody gets back to full speed after a cut faster than him. You saw that on a touchdown. The wide receivers were blocking. Galladay was out there getting dirty. Hodges had a great block on that touchdown. Him dragging 94 in the end zone. Saquon was possessed, man. And, again, I said it, Andrew Thomas has panned out. Dexter Lawrence. Now you're going to extend your two cornerstone guys on offense probably. Gettleman's sitting at home like, damn, dude. I picked some of these guys, and they really are. Their core, their young core, is really playing well. I just don't think you can take, like, Daniel Jones' best two of his best 3 games this year probably were against the Vikings, a couple of them, and I think the Vikings defense is that bad. I don't think this version of the Giants shows up every week. I do think they're scrappy. I love Brian Dable. I love what Daniel Jones has kind of blossomed into. They absolutely rode him in the second quarter on that 20-play drive. What he brings to the table in the run game, it's crazy. You almost don't believe it. And, the design runs, the whole thing, like they just kept giving him the ball, like, with no regard for his wellness in the first half. And I'm like, this guy's a machine. He really is. Like, I know he's got this aw shucks kind of persona, and he walks in with the LL Bean backpack and the Izod shirt, like buttoned all the way up and all that. But Daniel Jones is a hell of a football player. He's tough, and he's a dynamic weapon. And I don't want to get all hyperbolic, but I think the future's bright for this team. I just don't think, the Eagles are a big impediment. They've already lost to them twice. But then they'd have to see, like, San Francisco. It's hard enough to imagine them getting there, let alone beating, like, Buffalo or Cincinnati or the Chiefs. So I don't think it's this year for them, but, hey, prove me wrong, man. This team's a lot of fun to watch. And for the Vikings, like, Kirk Cousins can't throw the ball short of the sticks. It's that simple on that play. But as I mentioned, it's Dexter Lawrence and it's Leonard Williams, who had 8 and 7 pressures apiece. Lawrence had Bradbury in like I don't know, he said he had him in like a baby Bjorn. He just picked him up and deposited him in Kirk's lap, and all that pressure manifests with the game on the line. Kirk, with a threat of getting sacked, just dumps it down to Hawkinson, who had a really big day. The defense is what you got to fix there. I mean, Donatello did not have a great year. Disappointing. And I never thought the Vikings were a contender. I mean, I hate to be like callous about it, but when you play good teams and you get beat every time handily, it feels like, it's just not, it doesn't give you a lot of confidence going to the playoffs, and the Giants took care of business. Giants should have won that game the first time they played. They turned the ball over.
Chris Long here on the Rich Eisen Show. I got a few minutes left with him. So is there any concern that Josh Allen just keeps throwing balls where he shouldn't? Because that to me is, it changed the tenor of the game with the Dolphins yesterday. But then again, he's so amazing, he'll just take it out of the fire anyway. At some point. It's like it doesn't matter. Is it like Favre? Just throw some picks and what doesn't matter? I mean, like I'm trying to equate it.
It does matter. It does matter because that's the one thing. Like, what makes the Bills so great is Josh Allen. The thing that scares me about the Bills right now is maybe a little bit of Josh Allen because, like, listen, you play Skylar Thompson, you play Miami, and the only way you let them in this game, and with all due respect to Mike McDaniel, who coached a really good ball game for the most part. I mean, I'd like them to have a play on 4th and 1 with the game on the line.
I know.
But, like, they scrapped and, scratched and clawed all year long. Tua was down. He turned Tua into something that I didn't think was possible, although I do think it's a lot of it's scheme and that sort of thing, but I thought Tua had a really good year. Then, you get your backups and you lose Bridgewater. You got Skylar Thompson, who did not look very good. If you'd have told me that they were going to score over 30 points in this game or right up there around there, I said you were crazy. The only way that happened is turnovers. And Josh Allen's turnovers the picks were not as egregious as some of the ones he's thrown in the past. Like, there's been games this year where I'm like, what is he doing? It's like for a second, he forgets where he is or something. But I thought the picks yesterday was like, okay, one, he's taking a shot at John Brown. John Brown looks to be like not on the same page. He stops running. He forces the ball in the tight window. Miami makes a good play on deflection, Cole Beasley, and you get a second. I thought the one out of the half on the Sealer touchdown, like, where I'm like, okay, you're up. You got a chance to extend this lead. You see the free runner. just put the ball away. Don't get greedy. But part of what makes them great is always trying to make those top-end plays. And I'm not excusing it, because this is what scares me is like, hey, the Bills are as good as anybody, but they have these slumps, and worse, when the slump and the turnovers happen at the same time, kind of like what happened yesterday, it allowed things back in ball games. And, San Francisco, ironically, Brock Purdy, their offense, they're like a machine. 8 touchdowns, 9 real drives, or however you classify it. They're not turning the ball over. Now, Purdy throws some questionable balls, and he got away with some, this weekend. But they don't have that kind of, proclivity to just turn it over a bunch. And, their offense could look like that San Francisco machine. They didn't do that. They were just consistent. I think the consistency for San Francisco juxtaposed with kind of like the inconsistency for Buffalo. That's what scares me about Buffalo. It's like you can't take a quarter off against, Kansas City or Cincinnati. Now, I don't know what's happening up front with them. But that's what scares me about Buffalo.
So before I let you go, Chris Long, with the Giants win, that means the winner of Monday Night Football goes to San Francisco. Who goes to San Francisco? What happens tonight? What do you got for me there?
Well, I've been saying Tampa, so I'll stick with that. I feel like I played 100 years ago in Week 1. I'm not saying I'm basing it off of that game, but I just don't trust the Cowboys, man, in big spots. They're going to have to prove they want to be America's team. They got to prove it to America that they have a little bit of what those teams in the '90s had. You got to play your best ball in the biggest situations, and they just haven't always done that. And I think about Tom Brady, with time to prepare for this game, scrap something together. The run game can get it going the way they got going the first time they played. The thing I worry about for the Bucs is the secondary hasn't played as well. I just, if you're a lead sitting there, look at the NFC. You've got Philly, New York, you got San Francisco, and then you either got Dallas or Tom Brady. It's like, this thing have been any better for the NFL.
It's going to be amazing. It is going to be amazing tonight, Chris. No doubt about it.
Yeah, who do you think the NFL wants to win, real quick, Rich?
Who does the NFL want to win?
Who does the NFL want in San Francisco next week? Dallas or Tom Brady?
I mean, if you're talking about television executives, they'll take Dallas for sure. I mean, if Fox will take Dallas, that means they get Brady. It's a win-win. Yeah. They'll take Dallas against San Francisco, and they'll get Brady under contract, even though I think Greg Olson's maybe one of the best analysts out there these days.
That's interesting. That's a good take.
Thanks for the call, Chris Long. You're the best, brother. Let's do it again. Everybody check out you got it. Everybody check out the Greenlight Podcast with Chris Long, where all podcasts are acquired, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.